before the flood, I mean the flood happened because he wiped out these people. He said all the hearts of men were just bad, and he wiped them out. He went to Sodom and Gomorrah. He said that was bad. Abraham was feeling bad about it. He said, God, what if it's about 50 people over there? Would you save the place? Because he was feeling like a lot of people. Why are you going to kill everybody? There's got to be somebody good over there. So he let them see that there wasn't nobody good over there, which showed him that God doesn't wipe out good people. He wipes out bad folks. When he wipes out a whole nation of people, it's because the whole nation is bad. He doesn't wipe out people and you just happen to be caught in the crowd, you know.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that. He don't wipe you out like that. And even before he wiped out Sodom and Gomorrah, he got Lot's family out of there before he did that. Right?
Yeah.
Lot didn't even want to go. They had to pull him out.
Yeah.
Angels had to literally pull him out of there to get them out of there. Because the angel said, on God's command, we can't destroy this place till you get home. So, and they took their time getting out. So they yanked them out so they could go and destroy this place. And now, even to this day, that place can't be built on how dense the sand and the ground is. Nothing can be built on it. People have tried to go back there and rebuild, and they can't. Evil in the sight of God, all the way up until God said, I had enough. Now, that took from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob having 12 sons, to the 12 sons going into Egypt and staying there for 400 years, and then Moses coming along and getting them out. You see how long that took? That took a long time. So that took over almost 600-700 years after he had told Abraham that he gave these people 600 years basically to stop sinning, and they kept doing it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like on a whim. Like God say, they just doing the most over there. I need you to take them out. No, it took 600 years. And by the time he got Moses out, and then when Moses got the children of Israel out, they was in the wilderness for 40 years. So even 40 years after that, then Joshua had to take over, and that's when he used Joshua to go in there and take all of these people out. Right? And he started with Jericho. And then there was a trickle-down effect. And even when he did that, they still didn't do everything that he asked them to do. Joshua would start taking out everybody. But when Joshua died, the rest of the people that was left to do that, they didn't do it. They started living with them. They started mixing with them. And that's one thing that the Bible showed us in that book of the Judges. When you read that and you understand that, you see that God doesn't do anything without a purpose. He used Abraham to get him out of there, to start this nation of people of his own choice, but at the same time he destroyed this land that was tainted. And he didn't want him to take his father because his father was an idol maker. But he took him anyway. You know, which he disobeyed God in that. But he kept going with him, right? So where did God rectify that with? When Abraham had Isaac, right? When he told him, you're going to have a son. And he had his first son. But even in that, him and his wife came up with this plot and took the concubine and had a kid, right?
Yeah.
Who was the kid? Ishmael, right? So Ishmael is there. And God said, that ain't what I told y'all to do. I said Sarah was going to have a baby. And then Sarah ended up having a baby, right? And she had Isaac. Now God takes Isaac and say, well, now that you have the son that I told you, dedicate him to me. And they was like, what? Yeah, because you didn't listen to me when I told you not to bring your father. So I want to see if you're going to pick family over me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is your only son, and I understand that. But I need you to choose me over your son. So I need you to sacrifice him to me, since you took your dad.
Yeah.
and your cousin. All these people I didn't want you to take. So we can see if you're going to pick your family over me. So he was about to kill him, and he tell him, no, don't do that. Don't kill the baby. Why? Because he said, I just wanted to see if you was going to be obedient and do it. But now that you're going to do it. And notice, when you know that story, God didn't tell him that he was going to be the father of all these nations until after he did that. He needed to make sure that he was going to obey him. Right? So after he did that, he found a ram in the bush, and all of that was all well, and they came back home. Moving forward, you see how Abraham had Isaac, Isaac had Jacob. Jacob was a trickster doing all of this stuff, and he had all these kids. He had all these wives and all these kids, 12 kids and all of that. They ended up in Egypt, right? So once they got to Egypt, they stayed there for a little while because of Joseph's, they was jealous of their brother. They tried to kill their brother, and they let him go. He ended up in Egypt as number 2,
Right.
behind Pharaoh.
Right.
That's how God will use you. And see, that's what I love about the story about Joseph. He's become second under Pharaoh, and his brothers see him as second under Pharaoh, right?
Yeah.
And that is the quintessential thing about seeing somebody as who they are and not understanding how they got there. You know how people say you see who I am, but you don't see how I got here.
Yeah.
You know, and they see they see their brother Joseph as second in command in Egypt, but you don't know your brother. After y'all threw him in a hole, he was sold into slavery, and he went to jail in Egypt, and this woman tried to tempt him and got him put back in jail. You know, you don't know his story. You know, all you see is he is second in Israel in command. Second in Egypt in command, but you don't know how he got there. But in that whole story, God says, and God was with Joseph the whole way. You know, and that goes into what you were saying earlier about when somebody is trying to kill you, you have to leave room for God to save you. And a lot of times we don't do that. We try to come up with a contingency. But, you know, that's not what God called you to do.
Right.
If you realize how many times the children of Israel went to war and didn't have to fight.
Yes.
There was a lot of times that they didn't even have to fight. God would confuse them, and they'd just run off scared, the people that they was fighting. So it was a lot of times they didn't have to do anything but trust the Lord.
That's it.
You know. Because even good intentions can be still a bad choice. Good intentions could be such a bad choice. That's why you have to make decisions according to the will of the Lord. Let the Lord lead you and stop trying to lead yourself, because you're going to lead yourself right into trouble. And we're supposed to judge. That's how we know what to do and what not to do.
Right.
A lot of people believe that we are not. It says God says we don't supposed to judge people. Where does God say that at? We are supposed to judge. God says when we judge, we're supposed to judge righteously. God has a whole book called Judges.
Yeah.
He put judges in there.
Right.
He put people to judge Israel.
Right.
That's what he did. So we are supposed to judge. We judge all the time.
Yep.
Every day. We judge little things. We assume or we judge that when we sit in these chairs, they're going to hold us up.
Uh-huh.
You right?
Mm-hmm.
We judge when we get in our cars, they just going to start and we just going to go on about our way.
Right.
We judge on, we make judgment calls all day. So God built that in us to judge. But when we judge, we're supposed to judge righteously when it comes to people. So, like, that's a good question. And you're supposed to ask those type of questions. Is this person as holy or as Christian as they say he is? But then when you hear them cursing all the time,
Right.
then you know he not.
Right.
And that's why I say the Bible tells you, you know these people by their fruit.
Right.
You know them by their fruit. These people that, and see, a lot of people get by using Bible principles. It's easy to live by God's principles. And see, this is what happens when you tell people that Jesus is your Savior, but you don't live by Him being your Lord.
Yeah.
Right? And God says you have to make Him your Lord and Savior, which means you're going to abide by what this Bible say, and you ain't going to do all that cursing and carrying on. But because you do that, you ain't as holy as you say you are. You're not holy at all.